On his birthday, the millionaire couldn't get a table at the restaurant until a single mother invited him to sit down. And what happened next left everyone speechless. Before we dive into this journey, click the like button if you also enjoy stories that warm the heart and show that the best things in life are priceless. And don't forget, your feedback is very important. So tell us what you thought in the comments at the end of the story. Ready for the story? Brendan Hartley was turning 34 at that exact moment, and the only thing he wanted was a well-done piece of steak and absolute silence. It wasn't asking for much, or at least that's what he thought when he pushed open the door of the busiest restaurant in Savannah that Friday night. The place had just opened. 3 weeks of waiting lists, perfect reviews on every rating site, and a line that wrapped around the block on regular days. Brendan didn't have a reservation. He hadn't planned anything. He simply left the office at 9 o'clock in the evening, saw the restaurant lights, and thought the universe was finally cooperating with him. He thought wrong. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to Gregory's. Do you have a reservation?" The host was a young man with a rehearsed smile and a clipboard in his hands that seemed to contain the secrets of the universe. "I don't have a reservation," Brendan replied with the confidence of someone who had never needed one. "But it's just one table for one person." The host looked at the clipboard. Then he looked at Brendan. Then he looked at the clipboard again, as if expecting something magical to appear between one line and another. "Unfortunately, sir, we are completely booked tonight." "Completely?" "Yes, sir." Brendan looked around. The restaurant was spacious, well lit, with dark wood tables and a bar in the center that seemed to have been transported directly from some old movie. There was activity, of course, but there were also empty spaces, unoccupied chairs, an entire table in the corner that looked abandoned. "What about that table over there?" Brendan pointed. "Reserved, sir." "For what time?" "For now." "But there's no one sitting there." "They haven't arrived yet, sir." Brendan took a deep breath. It was his birthday. He had spent the entire day in meetings. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages he didn't want to answer. All he wanted was to eat something decent and pretend that they didn't exist. "Look," he tried a different approach, lowering his voice a bit as if he were about to reveal a state secret. "Today is my birthday." The host blinked. "Congratulations, sir." "Thank you." "So, considering the special occasion, maybe you could make an exception?" "Unfortunately, sir, we have no way to accommodate anyone without a reservation tonight. But I can put your name on the waiting list." "How long is the wait?" "Approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes. Brendan almost laughed. Almost. But the exhaustion was greater than his sense of humor. 2 hours and 40 minutes, he repeated just to make sure he had heard correctly. "It's an estimate, sir. It could be a bit longer or a bit shorter." "Unlikely, sir." It was impressive. Brendan had already closed million-dollar contracts with less resistance than this. He had already convinced skeptical investors, difficult partners, and even an entire board of directors. But there he was, defeated by a guy in his 20s with a clipboard and an unwavering smile. "All right," Brendan started to back away. "Thank you anyway. Would you like me to write down your name for a future occasion?" "No, thank you." He was already turning around when he heard a voice coming from one of the nearby tables. Hey, mister. Brendan looked in the direction of the sound. A woman with hair pulled back in a makeshift ponytail was waving at him. Next to her, a small girl watched him with huge, curious eyes, holding a green crayon as if it were a paintbrush. You, the birthday guy. You can sit here with us. Brendan stood still for a second, processing the information. Excuse me. There's a spare chair. We don't bite. The girl tilted her head to the side. I bite sometimes, she corrected seriously. But only when I'm very hungry. The woman gave her daughter a light tap on the arm. Gwen, we don't say that to strangers. But it's true, Mom. Brendan didn't know whether to laugh or run. The host beside him seemed equally confused, as if this type of situation wasn't covered in the training manual. I don't want to be a bother, Brendan said, still hesitant. You're not bothering us. We already ordered. The food is going to take a while, and honestly, she's already told me the same story about unicorns 3 times. I need an adult conversation before I lose my sanity. Gwen crossed her arms. Unicorns are important, Mom. I know, sweetheart, but Mommy needs a break. Brendan looked at the table. Then he looked at the door. The street was dark, cold, and he had no idea where else he could eat at that hour. Are you sure? He asked. Absolutely. Sit down before I change my mind. He didn't wait for a second invitation. He pulled out the empty chair and sat down, feeling completely out of place. The girl kept staring at him as if she were analyzing a new species of animal. You're tall, Gwen declared. I am, Brendan confirmed, not knowing what else to say. My dad was tall, too, but he left. The mother closed her eyes for a second, clearly counting to 10 mentally. Gwen, honey, we don't need to share the whole family history with people we just met. But you said he was going to sit with us. Now he's part of dinner. Being part of dinner doesn't mean being part of the family. It's almost the same thing. Brendan decided to step in before the situation got even more complicated. I'm Brendan. He extended his hand to the woman. And thank you so much for this. Really? She shook his hand firmly. Audrey, and this professional interrogator here is Gwen. I'm 5 years old, Gwen informed him as if that explained everything. Congratulations, Brendan replied automatically. Gwen frowned. It's not my birthday. It's yours. Oh, right. Audrey let out a short laugh. Relax. She makes everyone uncomfortable. It's a natural talent. The waiter appeared at that moment, notepad in hand, looking at the new table arrangement with a slightly confused expression. Will you be ordering too, sir? He asked Brendan. Yes, I will. What do you recommend? The house special is excellent. Angus steak with herb sauce, accompanied by roasted potatoes and grilled vegetables. Perfect. I'll have that. And to drink. Water, please. Just water? Audrey raised an eyebrow. It's your birthday, and you are going to drink water. I drove here. Fair enough, but still sad. Mommy, what's sad? Gwen asked. Drinking water on your birthday, sweetheart. But you always make me drink water because I'm 5 years old. So when you are old enough, you can choose whatever you want. Gwen seemed to consider that for a moment. The waiter wrote everything down and walked away, leaving the three of them in momentary silence. Brendan looked around, still trying to understand how he had ended up there. 20 minutes earlier, he was planning to eat alone anywhere that had an available table. Now he was sitting with a stranger and her 5-year-old daughter, who apparently had very strong opinions about hydration. So, Audrey began, resting her chin on her hand. What does a person do to end up alone on their own birthday? Works too much, apparently. Nobody called you. Family? Friends? They called. I didn't answer. Why not? Brendan thought about the answer. Because I didn't want to explain why I was alone on my birthday. Audrey let out a genuine laugh. That's the most honest thing I've heard all month. You're strange, Gwen declared, still holding the crayon. But nice strange. Thank you. I think. The food started to arrive. First Audrey and Gwen's plates, then Brendan's. The aroma was incredible, and for a moment, he completely forgot how bizarre the situation was. What do you do for work? Audrey asked while cutting Gwen's food into smaller pieces. Business, Brendan replied vaguely. Business. That's very specific. It's complicated. That's fine. I work at a veterinary clinic. Nothing complicated. Just animals trying to bite me all day. Sounds fun. It's more interesting than it seems. Last week, a parrot cursed at me in Spanish. Brendan nearly choked. Really? Really? The owner was more embarrassed than the bird. Gwen lifted her head. Did the parrot say a bad word, Mom? It did, sweetheart. But you can't repeat it. What bad word? Gwen? Okay. Brendan was genuinely having fun. It was strange. It was unexpected. And it was exactly the opposite of everything he had planned for that evening. The waiter returned to check if everything was all right. He looked at the three of them, smiled, and said, naturally, it's so nice to see a family dining together these days. You make an adorable trio. Brendan froze. Audrey's eyes widened. Gwen looked at the waiter as if he had just said the sky was green. We're not a family, Gwen corrected with the brutal honesty that only 5-year-olds possess. He's a stranger who couldn't get a table. The waiter turned red. Oh, I'm sorry. I assumed. It's okay, Audrey interrupted quickly, clearly trying to save the guy from embarrassment. It happens. The waiter walked away mumbling apologies, and a strange silence fell over the table. Brendan looked at Audrey. Audrey looked at Brendan. Gwen continued eating as if nothing had happened. Well, Audrey finally broke the silence. That was awkward. A little, Brendan admitted. At least the food is good. That's true. Gwen raised her fork. I liked him, Mom. Can we keep him? Audrey covered her face with her hands. Gwen, he's not a dog. I know. Dogs are furrier. Brendan laughed. A real laugh, one of those he hadn't given in months. And in that moment, sitting at a makeshift table with two complete strangers, he realized that this birthday had just taken a completely unexpected turn. The waiter was still recovering from the embarrassment when Gwen decided it was time to conduct a complete interrogation. Brendan had barely swallowed the first piece of steak when the girl dropped her fork, crossed her arms on the table, and stared at him with the intensity of a professional detective. Do you have a dog? She fired off. No. Neither fish. No. Hamster? No. Turtle? No. Gwen, Audrey interrupted. Let the man eat. But mom, I need to know if he likes animals. People who don't like animals are suspicious. Brendan raised an eyebrow. Suspicious of what? Of being bad, Gwen answered as if that were obvious. Every movie villain doesn't like animals. That's not true, Audrey countered. Some villains have cats. Cats don't count, mom. Cats are mysterious. Brendan decided to join the conversation. I like animals. I just don't have time to take care of one. Gwen seemed to consider that answer for a long moment. Okay, she finally conceded. You passed the test. What a relief, Brendan murmured, genuinely amused. Audrey shook her head, smiling. I'm sorry about her. When Gwen decides to investigate someone, there's no escape. I'm very good at finding things out, Gwen confirmed with pride. Last week I found out where mommy hid the cookies and ate them all before dinner. That's an accusation without proof, Audrey said. You had chocolate on your mouth, Gwen. Coincidence? Brendan laughed. A laugh that came from deep inside, one of those he hadn't given in months, maybe years. The dynamic between mother and daughter was like watching a live comedy with perfect timing and sharp responses. So, Brendan, Audrey turned her attention to him. You work in business. What kind of business? Investments, he replied, keeping the answer purposely vague. Investments in what? Can mainly. What kind of companies? Various kinds. Audrey narrowed her eyes. You are good at not answering questions, you know that. It's a talent I developed over the years. My mom is also good at not answering, Gwen interrupted. When I ask if I can have a pony, she never says yes or no. She just makes that face. What face? Brendan asked. Audrey demonstrated. It was a mixture of despair, forced patience, and a slight touch of someone considering running away to a deserted island. That face, Gwen pointed. She makes it a lot. I can imagine why, Brendan commented. Hey, Audrey protested. I'm an excellent mother. The best, Gwen agreed. But you still haven't given me the pony. Because we live in an apartment, Gwen. The pony could sleep in my room. Ponies don't sleep in rooms. How do you know? Have you ever asked a pony? Audrey looked at Brendan with an expression that clearly said, help. Does she always win the arguments? He asked. Always. It's exhausting. Dinner continued at this pace. Gwen asked impossible questions. Audrey responded with sharp sarcasm, and Brendan found himself laughing at things he normally wouldn't even notice. At some point, Gwen started drawing on the paper the restaurant provided for children. She worked with absolute concentration, tongue out, choosing colors with the seriousness of a professional artist. What are you drawing? Brendan asked. Our table, she replied without looking up. Can I see? Gwen turned the paper toward him. There were 3 figures, a woman with brown hair, a small girl in a purple dress, and a very tall man with a confused expression. That's me, Brendan pointed to the man. Yes. You are confused because you don't know what you are doing here. Brendan looked at Audrey. She's frighteningly perceptive. I know. Sometimes I think she reads minds. I don't read minds, Mom. I just pay attention. The waiter returned with the check. Brendan was faster and reached out to grab it. Let me get this, he said. Audrey shook her head. No way. You saved me from spending my birthday alone. It's the least I can do. We didn't save you. We invited you to sit down. Those are different things. Still, Brendan, Audrey used a firm but amused tone. I pay my own bills. I always have. Just because you showed up doesn't mean that's going to change. He stared at her for a moment. There was something about the way she said it, without aggression, without excessive defensiveness, just a statement of fact. A clear line she made a point of maintaining. All right, he conceded. Then each person pays their own. That I accept. Gwen raised her hand. And who pays for mine? I pay for yours, sweetheart, like always. But if I pay for mine, can I order dessert? You don't have any money. I have $3 in my backpack. $3 won't pay for a dessert here, Gwen. Then this restaurant is very expensive. It's a fancy restaurant. What's fancy? Expensive and pretty. Gwen looked around with a critical air. It's not that pretty. Brendan had to bite his lip to keep from laughing too loud. They paid separate bills, as agreed. When they got up to leave, Brendan realized he didn't want the night to end. It was a strange feeling. He spent most of his time trying to make things finish faster, meetings, business dinners, obligatory conversations. Everything seemed like a race against the clock. But there, in that moment, he wanted the clock to slow down. They left the restaurant, and the fresh air of Savannah welcomed them. The streets of the historic downtown were lit up with old lamp posts, casting a golden light over the stone sidewalks. There were couples strolling, musicians playing on corners, the smell of coffee coming from somewhere nearby. Gwen held her mother's hand and started hopping between the stones on the sidewalk, avoiding stepping on the lines. Do you live far from here? Audrey asked. About 20 minutes by car. And now, are you going home to sleep? Brendan looked at his watch. Not even 10 o'clock yet. Probably, he replied without conviction. Audrey seemed to notice the hesitation. Or, she suggested casually, we could walk a bit. There's a cafe near here that stays open until midnight, if you are not in a hurry to get back to your planned solitude. Planned solitude? You were the one who said you wanted to spend your birthday alone. I said I didn't want to answer calls. Same thing. Gwen stopped hopping and looked at Brendan. You should come. The cafe has hot chocolate with marshmallows. That's a good argument, Brendan admitted. I know. I'm very convincing. Audrey smiled. It wasn't a calculated or rehearsed smile. It was something natural that appeared in the corners of her eyes before reaching her lips. Brendan realized he was paying too much attention to that smile. So, she asked. He looked at Gwen, who was now making an exaggerated puppy dog face. He looked at Audrey, who was waiting for the answer with a raised eyebrow. He looked at the lit street, at the night that was still young, at the possibility of doing something different for the first time in a long while. All right, he said finally, but only because the hot chocolate has marshmallows. Gwen celebrated by raising her arms. I knew you would accept. How did you know? Because nobody resists marshmallows. They started walking side by side through the streets of Savannah, and Brendan realized this was officially the strangest birthday of his life, and maybe, just maybe, the best one, too. What he didn't know yet was that this simple walk was about to change much more than just his evening. The streets of Savannah seemed to have been designed for this kind of night. Golden lights, old sidewalks, and a warm breeze that made Gwen run ahead as if she were chasing invisible fireflies. Brendan walked beside Audrey, keeping a relaxed pace while the girl zigzagged between lamp posts and park benches. "Does she always have this energy?" he asked. "Always. It's like having a small tornado living with me." "And how do you survive?" "Coffee, lots of coffee, and pretending I know what I'm doing." Gwen stopped abruptly in front of a lit storefront. A toy store still open, with a display of dolls that looked like they came from another century. "Mom, look at this one." She pointed to a doll with a blue dress and red hair. "She looks like Aunt Marjo's." "Aunt Marjo's doesn't have red hair, Gwen. But she has that angry face. Look." Audrey approached the window and tilted her head. "Really? It's Marjo's face when someone eats the last piece of pie." Brendan looked at the doll. It had a severe expression, as if it were silently judging everyone who passed by. "Who's Aunt Marjo's?" he asked. "My older sister," Audrey replied. "She thinks she knows everything about raising children, but she doesn't have any. Those aunts who give unsolicited advice." "Exactly. Last week she sent me an article about the dangers of sugar. 10 pages. Did you read it?" "I used it to line the neighbor's cat's litter box." Brendan laughed. "That's high-level passive-aggressive revenge." "I know. It's my specialty." They kept walking. Gwen was now fascinated by a street musician playing guitar on a corner. She stopped to listen, swaying her body from side to side as if she were at a private concert. "Can I give him a coin, Mom?" Audrey searched in her purse and found some coins. "Here, go ahead." Gwen ran to the musician, deposited the coins in the guitar case, and came back hopping. He said thank you and called me princess. "You are a princess," Audrey confirmed. "I know, but it's nice when other people recognize it." Brendan shook his head. "Her confidence is impressive. I've been working on that since she was born. Women need to believe in themselves from an early age. The world will try to convince her otherwise later." There was something about the way Audrey said that, a layer of experience beneath the casual tone. Brendan realized she had probably learned that lesson the hard way. The cafe appeared on the next corner. A small place with wooden tables on the sidewalk and a sign that blinked irregularly. The name was simple, Coffee House. Nothing creative but honest. "This is it," Audrey announced. "The best hot chocolate in town, according to Gwen." "According to everyone," Gwen corrected. "I just agree with the majority." They went in and chose a table near the window. The interior was cozy, with exposed brick walls and old photographs of Savannah scattered everywhere. Soft music played in the background, something Brendan didn't recognize but that fit perfectly with the atmosphere. The server came to take their orders. Hot chocolate for Gwen, coffee with milk for Audrey, and an espresso for Brendan. "Espresso at this hour?" Audrey questioned. "You're never going to sleep." "I rarely sleep well anyway." "Insomnia?" "Too busy." "I understand. Mine doesn't shut off easily either." Gwen rested her chin in her hands and looked at both of them. "You two are alike." "Alike how?" Audrey asked. "You both make worried faces when you think nobody's looking." Brendan and Audrey looked at each other. The observation was too accurate to be ignored. You need to stop paying so much attention to people, Gwen, Audrey said. Why? Because it's scary. Because it's fun. The orders arrived. Gwen attacked the hot chocolate with enthusiasm, managing to create a foam moustache in less than 10 seconds. Audrey took a discreet photo with her phone. For the album, she explained. Do you have a lot of photos of her? Brendan asked. Thousands? Literally thousands. My phone is always out of memory. Mommy documents everything, Gwen confirmed, wiping the foam moustache with the back of her hand. Even when I do things wrong. Especially when you do things wrong. It's blackmail material for when you're a teenager. What's blackmail? Something you learn when you're older. You always say that. Because it's true. Brendan drank the espresso in silence, observing the interaction. There was a lightness there that he didn't find anywhere else in his life. No hidden agenda, no business expectations, no formality, just two people being exactly who they were. Can I ask you something? Audrey said suddenly. Sure. Why did you really want to spend your birthday alone? Brendan thought about the answer. The real answer was complicated. It involved years of obligatory parties, corporate events, forced smiles, and empty conversations. But he didn't want to get into that now. Sometimes you get tired of pretending you are having fun, he said finally. Audrey nodded slowly. I understand that. Before Gwen was born, I went to all the parties, all the events. Then I realized I preferred staying home watching movies with her than being anywhere crowded with people. Sounds like a good trait. It is. But people don't understand. They think you are depressed or antisocial. And do you explain? Not anymore. I got tired of justifying myself. Brendan smiled. I got tired too. Gwen finished the hot chocolate and started yawning. The kind of yawn that starts small and ends huge, almost swallowing the whole face. Someone's sleepy, Audrey observed. I'm not, Gwen protested, yawning again in the middle of the sentence. Of course not. You are completely awake. I am. Your eyes are closing by themselves, sweetheart. They are resting. It's different. Brendan looked at his watch. Almost midnight. The night had passed faster than he imagined. I should let you to go, he said. Audrey nodded. Yeah, probably. Tomorrow she has school, and I have to work early. That's when Gwen, in a quick move that caught everyone by surprise, reached out and grabbed her mother's phone from the table. Gwen, what are you doing? What's your number? Gwen asked Brendan directly, completely ignoring her mother. Audrey tried to grab the phone back, but the girl was faster, hiding the device behind her back. We need his number, Mom. What if we want to see him again? We just met him, Gwen. So what? He's nice, and you liked him. Audrey turned red as a tomato. I didn't say that. You laughed at his jokes. You never laugh at anyone's jokes. Brendan watched the scene, trying to hide his smile. The girl had relentless logic. She has a point, he said. Audrey shot him a look that clearly said, don't help. Look, Brendan continued, taking his own phone from his pocket, I can give you my number. No commitment. If you want to have coffee again someday, great. If not, no problem. Gwen extended her mother's phone toward him with a triumphant smile. See, Mom? He wants to give his number. It wasn't me who asked. You literally just asked Gwen, but he agreed. So it doesn't count. Audrey sighed, clearly defeated. All right, but only because you won't leave me alone until you get what you want. That's true, Gwen confirmed without any shame. Brendan typed the number into Audrey's phone and returned the device. Done. Gwen looked at the screen, checked if the number was saved correctly, and nodded, satisfied. Perfect. Now we can go. They paid for the drinks and left the cafe. The street was emptier now, with only a few pedestrians still around. The air had cooled down a bit, and Gwen snuggled against her mother. It was a good night, Audrey said as they walked back to where they had parked. Unexpected, but good. For me, too. Look, I don't usually do this. Impromptu meetings, conversations with strangers, that kind of thing. It's not my normal. I understand. But it was nice. You're different. Different good or different strange? I'm still deciding. Brendan laughed. Fair enough. They stopped near a modest car parked on the street. Audrey opened the back door and helped Gwen get in. The girl was already almost asleep. Brendan, Gwen murmured with her eyes closed. What? Mommy's going to text you. I guarantee it. Audrey quickly closed the door. Good night, Brendan. Good night, Audrey. And thank you for everything. She got in the car and drove off. Brendan stood on the sidewalk for a moment, watching the taillights disappear around the corner. Then he walked to his own car, parked a few blocks ahead. The next day at 10 o'clock in the morning, his phone buzzed with a message. Gwen insisted. Coffee at 3 o'clock. Same place as yesterday. Only if you don't have commitments with your planned solitude. Brendan reread the message 3 times before responding. And for the first time in a long while, he cancelled a meeting without thinking twice. Brendan arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early and spent the first 10 checking his own reflection on the phone screen, trying to figure out if his hair was presentable. It was pathetic. He knew it was pathetic, but he couldn't help it. Gwen was the first to appear at the cafe door, running ahead of her mother as if she were participating in a competition. She spotted Brendan, waved frantically with both hands, and crossed the room in a straight line to his table. You came, she announced as if there were any doubt. I said I would come. Adults say lots of things they don't follow through on. Mommy says that all the time. Audrey arrived right behind, slightly out of breath. Gwen, you can't go running off like that. I saw him, Mom, and he was alone, and he looked kind of lost. Brendan raised an eyebrow. I looked lost. A little, Gwen confirmed without mercy. Like when my goldfish looked at the aquarium glass without knowing what to do. Thanks for the comparison. You are welcome. Audrey sat in the chair across from Brendan, leaving Gwen between the two of them. Sorry for being late. Someone decided she needed to change clothes 3 times before leaving. I wanted to look pretty, Gwen explained. It's a date. It's not a date, Audrey corrected quickly. Yes, it is. We're meeting him, so it's a date. Brendan decided not to get into this discussion. What are you going to order? Hot chocolate, Gwen answered immediately. You had hot chocolate last night, Audrey reminded her. And I'm going to have it again today. It's my favorite. You can't live on just hot chocolate, Gwen. Why not? Because you need other nutrients. Chocolate has nutrients. Not enough. How do you know? Are you a scientist? Audrey looked at Brendan with an expression of defeat. See what I deal with every day. I'm starting to get an idea. The server came to take their orders. Hot chocolate for Gwen, who celebrated silently. Coffee with milk for Audrey, and another espresso for Brendan. You really like strong coffee, Audrey observed. It's what keeps me going. Me too. She gets grumpy without coffee. Gwen. It's true. Some truths don't need to be shared with everyone. But he's not everyone. He's Brendan. Audrey opened her mouth to respond, but apparently couldn't find an adequate counter-argument. Brendan hid his smile behind his hand. The orders arrived quickly. Gwen attacked the hot chocolate with the same intensity as always, while Audrey and Brendan talked about trivial things. The weather, the cafe, traffic, plans for the weekend. Are you working tomorrow? Audrey asked. Probably. There's always something. You never take time off. Rarely. That's not healthy. I know, but you keep doing it. Yeah, I know that too. Gwen lifted her head from the hot chocolate. You need a hobby. A hobby? Something you do just because you like it. Mommy has hobbies. She likes to read and complain about the neighbors. Gwen, Audrey protested. I don't complain about the neighbors. Yes, you do. Last week you said the lady on the third floor is more gossipy than a television show. That was an observation, not a complaint. What's the difference? The difference is, look, drink your chocolate. Brendan laughed. It was impossible not to laugh. The dynamic between the two was like watching a live comedy show with quick responses and perfect timing. After coffee, Audrey suggested a walk to a nearby park. Gwen immediately approved the idea because, according to her, the park had ducks and ducks were better than people. Why are ducks better than people? Brendan asked as they walked. Because ducks don't ask difficult questions, Gwen answered as if it were obvious. Fair enough. The park was one of those classic savanna places, old trees, wooden benches, and a small lake where some ducks actually swam in lazy circles. Gwen ran toward them, stopping at the water's edge to watch. Don't get too close, Audrey shouted. I know, Mom. Brendan and Audrey walked more slowly, keeping Gwen in sight. She's amazing, Brendan said. She's exhausting, Audrey corrected. But yes, also amazing. You've done a good job. Thank you. But it's not easy. Raising a child alone is complicated. I imagine. Audrey hesitated for a moment, as if deciding how much to share. Her father wasn't present from the beginning, so it's always been just me and her. He never showed up. No. At least not until recently. Brendan noticed something change in her tone of voice. A subtle tension that wasn't there before. Recently? Before Audrey could answer, Gwen came running back. Mom, a duck tried to steal my shoe. What do you mean it tried to steal your shoe? It came toward me and made that mean duck face. Ducks don't have mean faces, Gwen. This one did. I saw it clearly. Brendan looked at the lake. The ducks continued swimming peacefully, with no appearance of villainy. I think you scared it, he said. I don't scare anyone. I'm adorable. Modest, too, Audrey murmured. They continued strolling through the park. Gwen ran ahead, came back, asked random questions, ran again. Brendan realized he was smiling more than he had smiled in months. It was strange. He was completely out of his natural environment, without meetings, without negotiations, without strategies. And yet, he felt more present there than in any conference room. "You are quiet," Audrey observed. "I'm thinking." "About what?" "About how this is different from everything I know." "Different good?" "I think so." Audrey smiled. That smile that started in the eyes before reaching the lips. That's when she stopped walking. The smile disappeared instantly. Brendan followed her gaze and saw a man standing on the other side of the park. Tall, dark hair, wearing a leather jacket. He was watching the three of them with an expression Brendan couldn't decipher. "Audrey, is everything okay?" "No," she replied quietly. "That's Julian, Gwen's father." Brendan looked at the man again. He was still standing but had started walking toward them. "He reappeared a few weeks ago," Audrey continued, her voice more tense. "Says he wants to be part of her life after 5 years without a word." "And do you believe him?" "No. But he doesn't seem willing to accept a no." Gwen, who was a few meters ahead, finally noticed the man approaching. She came running back and positioned herself next to her mother, holding her hand. "Mom." The girl's voice had lost all its earlier energy. "What's he doing here?" "I don't know, sweetheart." 7. Julian stopped a few meters away. His gaze passed over Brendan quickly, with a curiosity that seemed more calculated than genuine. "Audrey," he said, his voice too smooth. "What a coincidence running into you here." Audrey squeezed Gwen's hand tighter. "It's not a coincidence, Julian. You are following us." Julian smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Following? That's a strong word. I just wanted to see my daughter." And before Audrey could respond, he crouched down to Gwen's height and said, "Hi, princess. Did you miss Daddy?" Gwen didn't answer. She just hid behind her mother's leg, looking at Julian the way you look at a stranger asking for money on the street. The silence lasted 3 seconds but felt like an eternity. Julian remained crouched, the forced smile starting to waver. "Gwen, it's me, your father." "I know who you are," Gwen replied, her voice small but firm. "You're the man from the old photos." Julian's smile disappeared completely. He stood up and looked at Audrey. "You don't talk about me to her." "I do," Audrey replied with icy calm. "I show her the photos when she asks. The problem is, she rarely asks." Brendan remained a few steps back, observing. He didn't know what his place was in this situation. Probably none. But he also couldn't just leave. Julian finally seemed to notice his presence. "And you are?" "Brendan." "Brendan," Julian repeated as if testing the name. "And what are you to Audrey?" "A friend." "Friend." Julian let out a short laugh. "Interesting. Audrey was always very selective with friends." Audrey started. "What do you want?" she asked, cutting off whatever he was about to say. "To talk." "Is that asking too much? Considering you spent 5 years without a single word?" "Yes, that's asking quite a bit." Julian put his hands in his jacket pockets, assuming a posture he probably thought was casual. "People change, Audrey. I've changed." "Good for you. Send a Christmas card with the updates." "I'm serious." "Me too. Very serious." Gwen tugged at the hem of her mother's shirt. Mom, can we leave? The ducks are waiting for me. The ducks left, sweetheart. Then we can go after them. Audrey looked at her daughter and then at Julian. We are leaving now. Audrey, wait. Julian took a step forward. I just want a chance. A real conversation without hostility. Hostility? Audrey raised an eyebrow. You show up out of nowhere, follow me to a park, and you think I'm being hostile? I didn't follow you. You live on the other side of town. This park is 3 blocks from my apartment. The probability of it being a coincidence is lower than me winning the lottery. You don't play the lottery. Exactly. Brendan almost laughed but held back. Audrey's timing was impeccable, even under pressure. Julian took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain his composure. All right, I admit it. I knew you'd be here. I stopped by the cafe, and one of the servers mentioned you had come here. Wonderful. Now you are interrogating cafe employees about my location. That's not strange at all. I just want to be part of my daughter's life. She's 5 years old, Julian. 5. You missed the first smile, the first steps, the first words, the first day of school, all the sleepless nights, all the fevers, all the nightmares. And now you show up wanting to participate. As if you could just press a button and that's it. Julian opened his mouth to respond, but Gwen was faster. Mom, he's making that face people make when they don't know what to say. Audrey looked at her daughter. What face? That fish face. Mouth open, eyes wide. Brendan had to turn his face to hide his smile. The girl was relentless. Julian closed his mouth abruptly. Look, he tried again, his voice more controlled. I know I messed up. I know I wasn't there. But I want to fix this. Some things can't be fixed, Julian. Some things you just learn to live with the consequences. She's my daughter, too. Biologically, yes. In all the other ways that matter, no. The silence that followed was thick. Brendan watched Julian clench his fists and relax them as if he were fighting an internal battle. This isn't going to end like this, Julian said finally, his voice lower. I have rights. You have rights you never exercised. There's a difference. The law doesn't see it that way. Then get a lawyer. But until then, stay away from me and my daughter. Audrey took Gwen's hand and started walking in the opposite direction. Brendan hesitated for a second, looked at Julian, and then followed the two of them. Audrey, Julian called one last time, this isn't over. She didn't respond, didn't look back. She just kept walking. The walk back to the parking lot was silent. Gwen held her mother's hand tightly, looking at the ground. Audrey maintained a neutral expression, but Brendan could see the tension in her shoulders, in the way she breathed. Are you okay? He asked quietly. No. But I will be. Can I help with anything? I don't know, but thank you for asking. They reached the car. Audrey opened the door for Gwen and helped the girl get in. The date ended earlier than I expected, Brendan said. Sorry, I didn't imagine this was going to happen. You don't need to apologize. It wasn't your fault. Audrey leaned against the car and crossed her arms. He showed up 3 weeks ago out of nowhere. Said he's changed, that he wants to be a father, that he deserves a second chance. The whole speech. And do you believe him? Not one bit. Julian never wanted responsibility. When he found out I was pregnant, his first reaction was to suggest we not go through with it. Brendan said nothing, just listened. I raised her alone. I worked, studied, did everything that needed to be done. And now he shows up wanting to reap what he didn't sow. What do you think he really wants? Honestly, I don't know. Control, maybe. He was always like that. When he can't get something, he becomes obsessed until he gets it. Audrey's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. It's him. Third message in 10 minutes. What's he saying? That he wants to talk. That I'm being unfair. That he'll seek other means if I don't cooperate. Brendan felt a knot in his stomach. Other means. Audrey put her phone in her pocket. He's talking about filing for custody. Says he has rights as a father and that he's going to enforce them. Can he do that? Technically, yes. Legally, any father can request a custody review. It doesn't mean he'll get it, but the process is exhausting, expensive, time-consuming. Gwen appeared in the car window. Mom, can we go? I'm hungry. We're going, sweetheart. Audrey looked at Brendan. I'm sorry for involving you in this. It wasn't my intention. You didn't involve me. I chose to be here. She smiled, but it was a tired smile. Thank you for everything. If you need anything, just let me know. Audrey got in the car and started it. Brendan stood in the parking lot watching the vehicle drive away. That night, he couldn't sleep properly. He kept thinking about Julian, about Audrey, about Gwen, about how a simple afternoon had turned into something much more complicated. And the next day, when his phone rang at 7 o'clock in the morning with Audrey's name on the screen, he knew things were about to get even worse. Brendan, her voice was shaky. He filed the petition officially. I just received the notification. The legal notification arrived in a plain white envelope, the kind that seems harmless until you open it and discover your life is about to turn upside down. Audrey read the document 3 times before she could process the words. Petition for custody review. Preliminary hearing in 30 days. Julian Cross versus Audrey Blair. She was sitting at the kitchen table when Brendan arrived 20 minutes after the phone call. Gwen was still sleeping in her room, oblivious to the chaos that was forming. Let me see, Brendan asked. Audrey pushed the envelope toward him without saying anything. He read quickly, his expression becoming more serious with each line. He's alleging reverse parental abandonment, Brendan murmured. What does that mean? Basically, he's saying you prevented him from exercising fatherhood. That's a lie. He disappeared by his own choice. I know, but the law allows him to make that claim. It's up to you to prove otherwise. Audrey rubbed her eyes. How do I prove someone wasn't present? Show the birthday photos where he doesn't appear? The calls that never happened? Actually, yes. Exactly that. She looked at him, confused. Really? Communication records, bank transfers, any documented attempt at contact. If he doesn't have any of that, his claim falls apart. What if he makes up evidence? Then it gets complicated. But it's hard to fake 5 years of absence. Gwen appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hair disheveled and wearing unicorn pajamas that were already getting too small. Why are you awake so early? She asked, rubbing her eyes. Audrey quickly hid the envelope under a magazine. We were talking, sweetheart. Do you want breakfast? I want pancakes. Pancakes are for weekends. Isn't today the weekend? It's Tuesday, Gwen. Oh, she seemed genuinely disappointed. Tuesday is a boring day. Brendan smiled. Why is Tuesday boring? Because it's not Monday, which is the beginning, and it's not Wednesday, which is the middle, which is almost the weekend. Tuesday is just Tuesday. That's a very deep analysis for someone who just woke up. I think a lot, Gwen explained. Mommy says I think too much. Your mother is right. Audrey prepared breakfast while Brendan and Gwen maintained a conversation about the merits of each day of the week. It was surreal. A legal document threatening her family was hidden under a magazine, and her daughter was debating whether Thursday deserved more respect. Brendan, Gwen said suddenly, do you know how to make pancakes? I do. Better than mommy. Gwen, Audrey protested. What? It's a valid question. Brendan looked at Audrey. Can I try? Do you really want to make pancakes at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday? Why not? I'm already here. Audrey hesitated. The situation was strange. A man she had known for less than 2 weeks offering to make breakfast for her daughter while a custody case hung over their heads. All right, she gave in. But if the pancakes turn out bad, Gwen will never forgive you. Understood. The pressure is high. Brendan found the ingredients and started working. Gwen positioned herself next to him like a demanding supervisor, commenting on every move. You're mixing it wrong. Wrong how? Too slow. The batter likes speed. The batter likes speed. It's science. I'm pretty sure it's not. You don't know everything. Audrey watched from the table, a cup of coffee in her hands. There was something comforting about that scene, something she didn't know she needed. The pancakes were ready. They weren't perfect, a bit uneven around the edges, but Gwen approved enthusiastically. They're good, she declared after the first bite. They're not better than mommy's, but they're good. Thanks for the honest review, Brendan replied. You are welcome. Honesty is important. After breakfast, Audrey took Gwen to school. Brendan stayed waiting in the apartment, rereading the legal document and making notes on his phone. When Audrey came back, he had a list ready. What's this? She asked. Things you'll need to gather. Financial records, proof of expenses with Gwen, school history, medical reports, everything that shows you're the primary caregiver. You really understand this? Brendan hesitated. I know people who understand it. What kind of people? Lawyers. Good lawyers. Audrey crossed her arms. Brendan. Good lawyers cost money. Money I don't have. I can help with that. No. Audrey. No, Audrey. I don't accept charity. It's not charity. It's help. It's the same thing. Brendan stood up and approached her. Look, I understand you want to solve this on your own. I respect that. But sometimes accepting help isn't weakness. It's strategy. Strategy? Julian probably hired a cheap lawyer who's going to try to pressure you until you give in. If you have a solid defense from the start, he'll realize it's not worth continuing. Audrey was silent for a moment. Why are you doing this? She asked finally. Doing what? All of this. Helping me. Showing up. Making pancakes for my daughter at 7 o'clock in the morning. Brendan thought about the answer. Because it's been a long time since I truly cared about something. And I care about you too. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged with something neither of them knew how to name yet. All right, Audrey said finally. I accept the help. But with one condition. What? You tell me who you really are. Because nobody has good lawyers in their pocket without having a story behind it. Brendan took a deep breath. Okay. But this conversation is going to need more coffee. I just made a whole pot. Then we're good. He sat down again. Audrey sat across from him. And before he could start explaining, her phone rang. It was Gwen's school. Miss Blair, we have a situation. A man showed up at the reception claiming to be Gwen's father and asking for authorization to pick her up. Audrey felt the ground disappear from under her feet. Don't let him get near her, she said, already grabbing her keys. I'm on my way. Audrey drove to the school in record time, her heart beating so hard she could hear it in her ears. Brendan was in the passenger seat, quiet but present. When they arrived, Julian had already left. The principal explained that he tried to convince the receptionist that he had authorization to pick up Gwen, but since his name wasn't on the list of guardians, he was politely asked to leave. Gwen didn't even know he had been there. This can't continue, Audrey said in the car, still shaking. He's getting bolder. I know. That's why you need solid legal protection now. And where do I find that? Brendan looked at her. I know a place. The office was on the 23rd floor of one of the most impressive buildings in downtown Savannah. Audrey looked at the mirrored glass facade and felt her stomach sink. Brendan, what place is this? The law firm I mentioned. This doesn't look like an ordinary office. It's not. They entered the lobby. Marble floors, a reception with 3 employees, a chandelier that was probably made of precious stones. Everything screamed money in a way that made her want to run away. Mr. Hartley. The receptionist greeted Brendan with familiarity. Mr. Marsh is waiting. Conference room 3. Audrey stopped walking. Mr. Hartley. Brendan turned to her. I was going to tell you. Tell me what exactly. Maybe it's better if we talk after the meeting. No. We talk now. Brendan took a deep breath. An executive walked past them, greeted Brendan with a respectful nod, and continued walking. I'm the founder of this office, Brendan said. Not the law firm itself, but the company that finances it. Hartley Capital, Investments and Business Consulting. Audrey was silent for 5 full seconds. You're rich. Yes. Like really rich. Yes. And you didn't think it was relevant to mention this before? I didn't want it to change the way you saw me. And you thought hiding it would be better? At the time, yes. Now, clearly not. An employee passed by pushing a coffee cart. She smiled at Brendan and continued on her way, completely oblivious to the tension hanging in the air. Look, Brendan tried to explain, I spend my whole life surrounded by people who only approach me out of interest. When I met you, you had no idea who I was, and that was refreshing. Refreshing? Audrey repeated, her tone loaded with irony. I know how it sounds. It sounds like you treated me as a social experiment. That wasn't it. Then what was it? Brendan opened his mouth to respond but was interrupted by a man in an impeccable suit who appeared in the hallway. Brendan, good to see you. And this must be Miss Blair. Derek, this isn't the best time. Nonsense. You're already here. Come, come. The room is ready. Derek Marsh was the type of lawyer who seemed to have been born wearing a tie. Grey hair, confident smile, firm handshake. He led the two of them to a conference room with a panoramic view of the city. So, Derek sat down and opened a folder. Custody review. Julian Cross. Let me guess, absent father who suddenly discovered he has rights. Basically, Audrey confirmed, still processing the earlier revelations. Classic. I see this every week. The good news is that cases like this rarely succeed when there's solid documentation of abandonment. Do you have records? Some. I'll need more. Financial history, communications, anything that proves he didn't contribute materially or emotionally in the last 5 years. What if he claims I prevented him from participating? Then we counterattack. Witnesses, records of contact attempts on his end, which probably don't exist. Georgia law favors the primary caregiver in cases of prolonged abandonment. Audrey looked at Brendan, who remained silent. And how much is this going to cost? Derek smiled. It's already covered. What do you mean already covered? Brendan called me yesterday. Consider it a favor between friends. I didn't ask for this. I know, Brendan finally spoke. But I offered. Audrey stood up. Can I talk to you outside? Now. They went out into the hallway. The view of Savannah stretched through the windows, but Audrey wasn't interested in scenery. What are you doing? She asked. Trying to help. Paying lawyers without consulting me? That's not help. That's control. Audrey, I'm not trying to control anything. Then what are you trying to do? Make sure you don't lose your daughter for lack of resources. And in return? Brendan seemed genuinely confused. In return for what? Nobody does this for free. Nobody. I do. Why? Because I care about you and about Gwen. And because I can help. It's that simple. Audrey crossed her arms. There was something in Brendan's expression that seemed sincere, but she had spent too many years learning that sincerity was often an illusion. I don't know if I can trust this, she admitted. I understand. But let me prove it. What if you prove it and I still can't accept it? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. Audrey's phone buzzed. A message from Julian. Heard you hired expensive lawyers. Interesting. Where did the money come from? Maybe the judge will want to know, too. Audrey showed the message to Brendan. He's investigating you now, she said. Let him investigate. I have nothing to hide. But I do. I have a life that doesn't fit with this world. What if the judge thinks I'm using you? Nobody will think that. You don't know that. Brendan was silent for a moment. What do you want to do? Audrey looked at the conference room door, then at Brendan, then at the window. I need space, she said finally. To think, to process all of this. All right. It doesn't mean I'm giving up the legal help. It just means I need to understand where I fit in all of this before continuing. I understand. Do you? Not completely. But I respect it. Audrey nodded slowly. I'm going to accept Derek's help. But you and me, we need a break. Brendan swallowed hard but didn't protest. If that's what you need. It is. She went back into the conference room. Brendan stayed in the hallway, looking out the window, trying to understand how an attempt to help had turned into a barrier. That night, Audrey lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Gwen was sleeping in the next room, safe, oblivious to everything. And for the first time in a long while, Audrey wondered if she had made a mistake letting someone get so close. The phone buzzed again. This time, it was Derek Marsh. Julian hired a new lawyer. One of the best in the city. This just got a lot more complicated. 2 weeks passed, and Audrey's apartment had never seemed so quiet. Not that there was a lack of noise. Gwen continued talking non-stop. The upstairs neighbor continued dragging furniture at inconvenient times. And the lady on the third floor's cat continued meowing in the hallway as if rehearsing for an opera. But something was missing. Or someone. "Mom," Gwen said during breakfast, "when is Brendan coming back?" Audrey almost dropped her cup. "He didn't go away, sweetheart. We are just taking some time." Time for what? To think. Think about what? Adult things. Gwen frowned. Adult things are complicated. They are. That's why I don't want to grow up. You'll change your mind. I doubt it. Adults are always worried. You make that face like you ate something spoiled all the time. Audrey tried not to laugh. What face? Gwen demonstrated. It was a mixture of furrowed eyebrows, crooked mouth, and half-closed eyes. That face. You've been making that face a lot lately. Thanks for the observation. You are welcome. I'm very observant. The custody petition was moving faster than Audrey expected. Derek Marsh was efficient, organized, and apparently tireless. He called every morning with updates, sent documents for review, and kept Audrey informed of every move from Julian's side. His lawyer requested access to your financial records, Derek informed her during a call. Can they do that? They can request it. Doesn't mean they'll get everything, but we need to be prepared. Prepared how? Documenting every penny you spent on Gwen in the last 5 years. School, doctor, clothes, food, everything. That's going to take forever. Welcome to the American judicial system. Audrey spent the following nights organizing receipts, bank statements, and payment records. It was tedious, exhausting, and depressing. Each paper was a reminder of everything she had done alone. Gwen appeared in the bedroom doorway one night, holding her pillow. "Mom, are you working again?" "I'm organizing some things, sweetheart." "You're always organizing things." "I know. But it's important." Gwen came closer and looked at the pile of papers. "What's all this?" "Bills, receipts, school documents." "Looks boring." "It's very boring." "Then why are you doing it?" Audrey sighed. "Because sometimes we need to do boring things to protect the important things. Like me. Exactly like you." Gwen climbed on the bed and snuggled next to her mother. "Mom, why didn't you let Brendan help you with these boring things?" Audrey hesitated. "How do you know that?" "Because that's how you are, Mom. You never let anyone help. Remember when the neighbor offered to pick me up from school and you said no? And when Aunt Marjose wanted to pay for my birthday party and you also said no?" Audrey blinked, surprised. "You remember that?" "I remember everything. The teacher says I have an elephant's memory. Elephants don't even have that good a memory." "Yes, they do. I researched it. Audrey was silent for a moment. Her 5-year-old daughter had just summarized a behavior pattern she herself struggled to admit. Mom, do you like him? Audrey looked at her daughter. The big, curious eyes waited for an honest answer. I do like him, she admitted. But sometimes liking someone isn't enough. Why not? Because there are other things involved. Complicated things. Adult things again. Yes. Gwen sighed dramatically. Adults complicate everything. I know, sweetheart. You should be more like children. We solve everything faster. How do you solve things? We fight, sulk for 5 minutes, and then go back to playing together. Simple. Audrey smiled. Maybe you're right. Brendan kept his distance as promised, but he didn't disappear completely. He sent short messages to Derek asking about how the case was going, never to Audrey directly. She knew this because Derek mentioned it during a meeting. Your friend is following everything closely, he commented casually. He's not my friend. Oh? Then what is he? Audrey didn't know how to answer. Julian, on the other hand, became more present every day. Not physically, but through messages, emails, and constant legal maneuvers. He contested every document, questioned every statement, and demanded access to information he had no right to. He is trying to wear you down, Duke explained. It's a common tactic. Drag out the process until you give up or accept an unfavorable agreement. I'm not going to give up. I know. But he doesn't know that yet. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following week. Audrey spent the days before reviewing documents, rehearsing answers, and trying to keep Gwen oblivious to the chaos. It didn't work completely. Mom, why are you nervous? Gwen asked the night before the hearing. I'm not nervous. Yes, you are. You bit the pen cap. You only do that when you're nervous. Audrey looked at the pen in her hand. The cap was completely destroyed. Tomorrow I have an important meeting, she explained. About what? About me. What did I do? Nothing, sweetheart. It's just something adults need to resolve. Adult things again. That's right. Gwen crossed her arms. When I grow up, I'm going to create a law that prohibits adult things. Good luck with that. On the morning of the hearing, Audrey woke up to the phone ringing. It was an unknown number. Hello? Audrey. Julian's voice sounded from the other end. Falsely friendly. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you outside of court. Don't be like that. I just want to resolve this in a civilized way. Civilized? You sued me. I sued for the right to see my daughter. There's a difference. Not to me. Look, I'll be direct. I know you're involved with that investor, Brendan Hartley, and I know he's financing your defense. Audrey felt a chill in her stomach. That's none of your business. It will be when I mention it to the judge. A single mother suddenly with unlimited resources. Seems interesting, doesn't it? What do you want, Julian? An agreement. Shared custody. Alternating weekends and half the holidays. No. Audrey, think about it. Do you really want to drag this out for months? Years? Maybe. Think about Gwen. I think about Gwen every day. Something you didn't do for 5 years. People change. Some don't. There was silence on the other end of the line. All right, Julian said finally, his voice losing its false cordiality. If that's how you want it, we'll do it your way. But I'm going to mention your rich boyfriend in court. And I'm going to question where the money comes from. And I'm going to make the judge wonder if you are really the best option to raise our daughter. She's my daughter. Legally, she's ours. And I'm going to prove it. The call ended. Audrey stood in the middle of the kitchen, phone still in hand, heart racing. Gwen appeared in the doorway, her school uniform already on. Mom, who was it? Nobody important, sweetheart. You are making that face again. What face? The one like you ate something spoiled. Audrey forced a smile. I'm fine. Go brush your teeth. Gwen obeyed but looked back one last time before leaving. Audrey leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. Julian was going to use Brendan against her, and she had no idea how to defend herself against that. Her phone buzzed with a message from Derek. Just received Julian's witness list. There's a name you need to see. Urgent. The name on Julian's witness list was Marjo's Blair. Aunt Marjo's. Audrey's own sister. Audrey read Derek's message 3 times, standing in the middle of the kitchen while Gwen brushed her teeth in the bathroom. Of all the things Julian could do, involving her own family was the lowest. But there was no time to process that. The hearing was in 2 hours. She dropped Gwen off at school, promising she'd be there to pick her up at the usual time, and drove to the Chatham County Courthouse with her heart beating too hard. Derek was waiting for her at the entrance. Did you see my message? I did. Marjo's is going to testify against me. I know. But don't worry. Character witnesses rarely change the course of a case when the evidence is solid. She's my sister, Derek. I know, and I'm sorry. But now you need to focus. Focus, right? While my own family stabs me in the back. Technically, she hasn't stabbed anyone yet. Let's wait for the testimony. Audrey took a deep breath. Was that an attempt to make me laugh? It was. Did it work? No. Fair enough. Let's go in. The courtroom was exactly as Audrey imagined. Dark wood, American flag in the corner, a judge with the expression of someone who would rather be anywhere else. Julian was already sitting on the other side next to his lawyer, a thin man with narrow glasses who seemed to calculate every move. And in the benches behind Julian, there was Marjo's, her older sister, with the same nose and the same forehead, but with an expression Audrey didn't recognize. She really came, Audrey murmured. Keep focused, Derek replied quietly. Don't let this shake you. The hearing began with the usual formalities. Julian's lawyer presented his arguments about paternal rights, claiming that his client had been systematically prevented from participating in his daughter's life. Derek counterattacked with 5 years of financial records, proof of expenses, and a communication history that showed exactly 0 contact attempts from Julian. Your Honor, Derek said, organizing the documents, we have here 60 months of records. No messages, no emails, no letters, no contact attempts. Not one call, not one birthday card, not one transfer of any amount to contribute to the child's expenses. The judge looked at Julian. Mr. Cross, do you have any explanation for this? Julian shifted in his chair. My daughter's mother made it clear she didn't want my presence. I respected that wish. You respected it for 5 years. The judge raised an eyebrow. I was going through a difficult time. Personal problems. What kind of problems? Julian's lawyer interrupted. Your Honor, my client prefers not to go into personal details at this time. Convenient, Derek murmured loud enough to be heard. The judge sighed. Let's continue. Miss Blair, do you have anything to add? Audrey stood up. Her legs were shaking, but her voice came out firm. Your Honor, I've raised my daughter alone since the day she was born. I worked, studied, and did everything within my power to give her a stable life. Mr. Cross never tried to be part of that life. Not once. And now he shows up wanting rights he never bothered to exercise. Did you ever prevent Mr. Cross from seeing his daughter? No, Your Honor. He simply never showed up. Julian shifted in his chair, clearly uncomfortable. His lawyer tried to redirect. Your Honor, we would like to call our character witness, Marjose Blair. Marjose stood up and walked to the witness stand. Audrey felt her stomach turn. Mrs. Blair, you are the defendant's sister, correct? Correct. And how would you describe your sister's relationship with the child's father? Marjose hesitated. She looked at Audrey, then at Julian, then at the judge. Complicated. Can you elaborate? My sister is stubborn. She doesn't accept help easily. And when Julian left, she closed all the doors. So you confirm that your sister prevented Mr. Cross from participating? Marjose was silent for a long moment. No, she said finally. I don't confirm that. Julian's lawyer blinked. Excuse me. I said she closed doors. I didn't say she locked them. Julian could have tried. He chose not to try. The silence in the courtroom was almost palpable. Mrs. Blair, the lawyer tried to recover. Weren't you called to testify in favor of Mr. Cross? I was. But you asked me to tell the truth. And the truth is that my sister raised that girl alone. I may not agree with all her choices, but I've never seen anyone work so hard for a child. Marjose looked directly at Audrey. I'm sorry for coming here thinking I'd speak against you. I was wrong. Audrey felt her eyes burn but held back the tears. The judge banged the gavel. Let's take a 15-minute break. During the break, Derek approached Audrey with a contained smile. That was unexpected. I thought so, too. His witness just testified in your favor. That's gold. On the other side of the hallway, Julian was arguing heatedly with his lawyer. The lawyer was making frustrated gestures while Julian was getting redder and redder. When the hearing resumed, the judge was direct. Considering the evidence presented and the witness testimony, I find no grounds to alter the current custody arrangement. Mr. Cross's petition is denied. Custody remains exclusively with Miss Blair. Audrey felt her legs weaken with relief. However, the judge continued, Mr. Cross may request supervised visits, provided he proves stability and genuine interest in the child's well-being. Review hearing in 6 months. Julian stood up abruptly. This is unfair. Mr. Cross, I suggest you calm down. I have rights. And Miss Blair has 5 years of responsibility. Sit down or you'll be removed. Julian looked at Audrey with an expression that mixed anger and something else. Something calculated. This isn't over, he said quietly, just for her to hear. For me, it is, Audrey replied. She left the courthouse with Derek by her side. The Savannah sun hit her face, and she breathed deeply for the first time in weeks. Marjose caught up with her on the steps. Audrey, wait. Audrey stopped but didn't turn around. What do you want, Marjose? To apologize. Really? You came here to testify against me. My own sister. I know. Julian reached out to me. Said he just wanted to see his daughter, and I believed him. I was naive. Audrey finally turned around. Why did you believe him and not me? Marjose lowered her eyes. Because we've always fought, and I let that blind me. The silence between them lasted a few seconds. It's going to take time, Audrey said finally. I know. But I want to try to fix it. We'll talk later. Right now, I need to go pick up my daughter. Audrey went down the steps and grabbed her phone. A message from Brendan was waiting on the screen. Derek told me. Congratulations. You won. She looked at the message for a long moment, then typed a response. Thank you for everything. Can we talk? The response came in seconds. Whenever and wherever you want. And for the first time in weeks, Audrey felt that maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. Audrey picked up Gwen from school with a smile she couldn't contain. The girl noticed immediately. Mom, why do you have that face? What face? That face like you won a prize. I did win, in a way. What prize? The prize of continuing to be your mother officially. Gwen frowned. You've always been my mother. I know, sweetheart, but now it's confirmed on paper. Adults are strange. They need paper to confirm obvious things. Audrey laughed and hugged her daughter tight. You're absolutely right. They went home, and Audrey spent the afternoon trying to decide what to do about Brendan's message. He had responded that he could meet her whenever and wherever she wanted. But where? And when? And what would she say? Gwen solved the problem for her. Mom, when is Brendan going to show up again? I don't know, sweetheart. You should call him. Why do you think that? Because you look at your phone every 5 minutes. It's pretty obvious. Audrey looked at the phone in her own hand. She hadn't even realized she was holding it. I'm not looking every 5 minutes. Yes, you are. I counted. You counted? I told you, I'm observant. Audrey sighed. All right, I'll send a message. Finally. Don't need the commentary. Yes, I do. You're slow with these things. Audrey typed a quick message, tomorrow 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the usual cafe. Is that okay? The response came in less than a minute. I'll be there. Gwen read over her mother's shoulder. See? It wasn't that hard. Gwen, privacy. Privacy is for people who don't need help. You need help. Audrey couldn't disagree. The next day, she dropped Gwen off at school and arrived at the cafe 15 minutes early. Brendan was already there, sitting at the same table as always, with a coffee in his hand and an expression that mixed anxiety and hope. You got here early, Audrey said, sitting down across from him. You did too. I was nervous. Me too. Why were you nervous? Brendan smiled. Because I spent the last 2 weeks not knowing if you'd want to see me again. And if you didn't, I would have respected it, but it would have been hard. Audrey ordered a coffee with milk. The server brought it quickly, along with a cookie she hadn't ordered. On the house, he explained. You two look like you need something sweet. Audrey and Brendan looked at each other. Are we that obvious? She asked. A little, the server replied before walking away. Brendan laughed. Apparently, everyone knows we are having an important conversation except us. Apparently. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that happens when two people have a lot to say and don't know where to start. Brendan was the first to speak. I need to tell you something. Okay. I like you. Really? Really? Not as a friend. Not as someone who wants to help out of charity. I like you in a way that scares me. Audrey felt her heart race. Why does it scare you? Because I spent years avoiding this kind of feeling. It's easier to keep distance. Safer. And now I don't want distance anymore. At least not from you. Audrey looked at the coffee in her own hand. The steam rose in slow spirals, disappearing into the air. Brendan, I like you too. But I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Of losing my independence. Of depending on someone and then being abandoned again. Of putting Gwen in a situation where she gets attached and then suffers. I understand. Do you really? Not completely. But I respect it. Audrey looked at him. There was something in Brendan's eyes that seemed genuine, something she hadn't seen in anyone for a long time. I need time, she said finally. How much time? I don't know. But I don't want to push you away while I figure it out. Brendan nodded. Then don't push me away. It's not that simple. Why not? Because you are rich, Brendan. And I'm not. And that creates an imbalance I don't know how to deal with. Money doesn't have to be part of this. But it is. It always is. Brendan leaned forward. Let me tell you something. Before I met you, I spent my birthdays alone because I didn't trust anyone around me. Everyone wanted something. Everyone had an agenda. And then I walked into that restaurant, couldn't get a table, and a stranger invited me to sit with her without knowing who I was, without wanting anything in return. So you treated me like a normal person. That's rare. And valuable. More valuable than anything I own. Audrey felt her eyes burn. Are you trying to make me cry? No. I'm trying to show you that the imbalance you see doesn't exist for me. But it exists for the rest of the world. The rest of the world doesn't matter. Easy to say when you have money. Brendan laughed. The server came back to check if they needed anything. Audrey ordered another coffee. Brendan asked for the check. Are you leaving already? She asked. No, I just want to pay before you insist on splitting it. I was going to insist. I know. That's why I'm paying now. Audrey shook her head. You're impossible. I know. It's part of my charm. They stayed at the cafe for another hour, talking about trivial things. Gwen's school, Audrey's work at the veterinary clinic, Brendan's plans for the company. It was light, natural, as if the last few weeks of tension had never happened. When they got up to leave, Brendan stopped at the door. Can I ask you something? Depends on what you are asking. Dinner. You and me. No improvising this time. A real reservation at a real restaurant. On a date you choose. Audrey thought for a moment. What about Gwen? She can come if she wants. Or we can get a babysitter. Whatever you prefer. Are you asking me on a date? Technically, yes. A real date, with a reservation and everything. Audrey couldn't hide her smile. All right. But I choose the restaurant. Fair enough. And you can't spend a fortune. That's going to be difficult. Try. Brendan extended his hand. D. Audrey shook it. D. She left with a smile she couldn't contain. When she arrived to pick up Gwen, the girl was waiting at the door. So? Gwen asked. So, what? So, what did you talk about? We talked, and he invited me to dinner. Gwen broke into a huge smile. Finally. Can I go? I don't know yet. Please. I promise to behave. You never behave. But I can try. Audrey laughed and hugged her daughter. We'll see. That night, as she put Gwen to bed, Audrey realized that for the first time in a long while, she was looking forward to something good. And that by itself was already a victory. Gregory's was exactly as Audrey remembered. Same dark wood floor, same golden lights, same bar in the center that looked like it came from another century. Only this time, there was a reservation for a table for 3 under the name Hartley. Brendan told the host, a different young man this time. The birthday gentleman, he said, who couldn't get a table. That's me. And the lady who saved him. I didn't save anyone, Audrey corrected. I just offered a chair. Sometimes a chair is all someone needs. Gwen tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mom, is he being philosophical? He is, sweetheart. What's philosophical? It's when adults say deep things nobody asked for. The host laughed and led them to a table in the corner with a view of the rest of the room. It was the best table in the restaurant, Audrey realized. Of course it was. You asked for the best table, she said to Brendan as they sat down. I asked for a good table. They chose this one. Coincidence, right? Total coincidence. Gwen looked around with wide eyes. This place is fancy. You've been here before, Audrey reminded her. I know, but now I'm paying attention. The waiter appeared with the menus. He was also the same one from the first night. He looked at the 3 of them and smiled. The family is back. Audrey felt her face heat up. Brendan cleared his throat. Actually, we're not. Yes, we are, Gwen interrupted. Or almost. It's still in the testing phase. The waiter blinked. Testing phase. Yeah, like when you download an app and it's free for a month before you decide if you want to pay. Audrey covered her face with her hands. Gwen, where did you get that from? From that game ad on the tablet. Brendan was clearly holding back laughter. So, I'm in the testing phase. You are, Gwen confirmed. But you are doing well. 7 out of 10 so far. Only 7? You lost points when you disappeared for 2 weeks. Fair enough. The waiter, clearly not knowing how to react, decided to focus on work. Can I take your drink orders? Water for her. Audrey pointed to Gwen. Wine for me. Red, please. And for you, sir. The same. Gwen crossed her arms. Everyone drinks cool things except me. Water is cool, Audrey said. Water is clear and boring. Just like Tuesday. Brendan raised an eyebrow. Tuesday. She didn't give up after your explanation, Audrey murmured. The orders were placed. Gwen chose macaroni and cheese despite being in a sophisticated steakhouse. The waiter didn't question it. Audrey ordered the same steak she had eaten on the first night. Brendan did too. "We are being nostalgic," he commented. "We are being practical. We already know it's good." That too. While they waited for the food, Gwen grabbed the crayons the restaurant provided for children and started drawing on the table. "What are you drawing?" Brendan asked. "You too. Can I see?" "When I'm finished." Audrey looked at Brendan. He was relaxed, smiling, completely different from the exhausted man who had walked into the restaurant weeks ago. "You look different," she said. "Different how?" "Lighter. I feel lighter." "Why?" Brendan thought for a moment. "Because it's been a long time since I had something to look forward to. And now I do." "What are you looking forward to?" "This." "You too." "Nights like this." Audrey felt her heart squeeze in a good way. "That was very sweet," Gwen commented without looking up from her drawing. "Were you listening?" Audrey asked. "I'm always listening. I already told you, I have very good ears." "Privacy, Gwen. Privacy is overrated." The food arrived. The steak was perfect. Gwen's macaroni had enough cheese to feed an army. And the conversation flowed as if they had been doing this for years. At one point, Gwen held up the drawing to show them. "I'm done." It was a crayon version of the three of them, Audrey with brown hair and a purple dress she wasn't wearing, Brendan tall and with a crooked smile, and Gwen in the middle holding both their hands. "It's us," she explained. "A family." Audrey looked at the drawing. Then she looked at Brendan. Then she looked at her daughter. "Gwen, we are not a family yet." "Not yet. But we will be." "How do you know?" "Because I'm observant. And you to keep looking at each other all the time, thinking nobody notices." Brendan let out a laugh. "She's right." "Don't help," Audrey murmured. "I'm always right," Gwen declared. "It's a gift." Dessert was served. A brownie with ice cream that Gwen attacked as if she hadn't just eaten a whole plate of macaroni. Audrey and Brendan shared a lemon pie that was absurdly good. "Can I ask you something?" Brendan said. "Sure." "Do you regret inviting me to sit down that night?" Audrey thought for a moment. "No. Not at all." "Why did you invite me?" "Because you looked lost. And I know what it feels like to feel that way. And now? Now you look less lost." "Thanks to you." "Thanks to both of us," Gwen corrected. "I helped too." "You helped a lot," Brendan agreed. "I know. I'm essential." Audrey shook her head, but she was smiling. When the check came, Brendan paid without discussion. Audrey didn't even try to argue this time. Some battles weren't worth it. They left the restaurant and walked to the parking lot. The night was cool, with a gentle breeze that made the tree leaves dance under the lamplight. Gwen ran ahead, jumping between the tree shadows. "She never stops," Brendan observed. "Never. It's exhausting and wonderful at the same time." "Like you." Audrey looked at him. Was that a compliment? It was an observation. It sounded like a compliment. Maybe it was. They stopped near the car. Gwen was a few meters ahead, entertained by a puddle of light on the ground. "Audrey," Brendan said, turning to her. "What?" "I want to do this right." I don't want to be just someone who shows up now and then. I want to be present. Really? What are you saying? I'm saying I want to try a real relationship with you. With Gwen. With everything that means. Audrey felt her heart race. Are you sure? Absolutely. Even knowing how I am? Especially knowing how you are. Gwen appeared out of nowhere. Are you having a moment? We are, Brendan confirmed. Can I participate? You are already participating. Gwen smiled. So, are you going to date? Audrey looked at Brendan. Brendan looked at Audrey. We are, she said finally. Gwen let out a scream that probably woke up every bird within a 5-kilometer radius. I knew it. I said so. I predicted it. You didn't predict anything, Audrey said. Yes, I did. From day one. Asked him. Brendan raised his hands in defense. She kind of predicted it. See. Gwen crossed her arms, triumphant. I'm psychic. You are not psychic. Yes, I am. A relationship psychic. Audrey laughed. Brendan laughed. Gwen celebrated as if she had won a championship. And there, in the parking lot of a restaurant where it all began, the three of them sealed something none of them expected to find. A family in the testing phase, maybe, but a family nonetheless. 1 year later, Brendan Hartley was turning 35, and for the first time in his adult life, he wasn't alone. Audrey's apartment was decorated with balloons that Gwen had personally chosen. They were all purple because, according to her, purple was the color of royalty, and Brendan deserved to be treated like a king on his birthday. Even if only for 1 day, she clarified. Thanks for the clarification, Brendan replied. You are welcome. I don't want it to go to your head. Audrey appeared in the kitchen carrying a lopsided cake that had clearly been made at home. The frosting was uneven, the candles were slightly tilted, and there was a chocolate fingerprint in the corner. Before you say anything, she began, Gwen helped. I can see that. What does that mean? Gwen asked, her hand still dirty with chocolate. It means it's perfect, Brendan replied diplomatically. Good answer, Audrey murmured. You are learning. The past year had been a roller coaster of adjustments, discoveries, and moments none of the three expected. Brendan had learned that living with a 6-year-old child meant never having complete silence again. Audrey had learned that accepting help didn't mean losing independence. And Gwen had learned she could have two adults paying attention to her at the same time, which she used to her advantage whenever possible. Can I open the presents now? Gwen asked. The presents are mine, Brendan reminded her. I know, but I like to watch. You like to watch, or you like to give your opinion? Both. At least she's honest, Audrey commented. The presents were piled on the living room table. There weren't many, but they were carefully chosen. A book Brendan had mentioned months ago, a mug with a photo of the three of them that Gwen had insisted on making, and a gift certificate for a fishing equipment store that he would never use but that Gwen was certain he needed. Do you fish? Audrey asked when she saw the certificate. No. Then why did she think you needed that? Because the salesman said every man needs to learn to fish, Gwen explained, and you've never fished, so you need to learn. The logic is undeniable, Brendan admitted. I know. I'm very logical. The cake was cut, the candles were blown out, and Brendan made a wish he didn't tell anyone. Gwen tried to guess for 10 minutes straight. Was it a new car? No. A beach house? No. A pet dinosaur? That doesn't even exist. But if it did, would you want one? Probably not. You are very hard to please. Audrey sat down next to Brendan on the couch while Gwen devoured her third slice of cake. How are you? She asked quietly. Good. Really good, actually. Strange, isn't it? What? Being good. Genuinely good. Without waiting for something to go wrong. Brendan thought for a moment. A little. But I'm getting used to it. Me too. Gwen appeared in front of them, her face covered in chocolate. Are you having a moment again? We are, Audrey confirmed. You have a lot of moments. That's what couples do. You are not married. Not yet, Brendan said without thinking. Audrey turned to him. Not yet. Brendan felt his face heat up. I meant. What did you mean? Maybe someday. Gwen crossed her arms. Are you asking mommy to marry you? No, I mean, not now. I mean. You are making that fish face again, Gwen observed. What fish face? The one you make when you don't know what to say. Mouth open, eyes wide. Audrey was clearly trying not to laugh. Relax. Nobody's pressuring you. I am, Gwen disagreed. I want to be a flower girl. Gwen, nobody's getting married. Not yet, he said. Not yet. That means it's going to happen. That doesn't mean anything. Yes, it does. I studied at school. I know what words mean. Brendan buried his face in his hands. I created a monster. You didn't create me, Gwen corrected. My mom created me. You just showed up later. Thanks for reminding me. You are welcome. Audrey finally let the laughter escape. Welcome to the family, Brendan. Am I still in the testing phase? No, you passed. When did that happen? About 6 months ago. I just hadn't told you. Why not? Because it was fun to see you nervous. Gwen nodded. It was very fun. You two are terrible. We know, they said in unison. The rest of the night passed in a blur of laughter, conversation, and more cake than any person should consume. At some point, Gwen fell asleep on the couch, still holding a purple balloon she refused to let go of. Audrey carried her to the bedroom and came back to find Brendan looking out the window. What are you thinking about? She asked. Last year. The restaurant. How everything changed. Regrets? Not at all. Good. Because now it's too late to go back. I don't want to go back. Audrey approached and stood beside him. You know what I realized, she said. What? That you walked into that restaurant looking for solitude, and you found exactly the opposite. Sometimes the universe knows what it's doing. Or sometimes a bored single mother decides to invite a stranger to sit down because her daughter was telling the same unicorn story for the third time. Brendan laughed. That too. But it worked. It worked. They stood in silence for a moment, looking at the city lights through the window. Brendan? What? Happy birthday. Thank you. And about that not yet from earlier. Yes? Audrey smiled. Ask again in 6 months. Brendan felt his heart race. Really? Really? But only if you pass the next tests. What tests? The ones Gwen is going to invent. She's already planning. That worries me. It should. Brendan looked at the woman beside him. The woman who had transformed a lonely birthday into something completely different. The woman who had shown that accepting help wasn't weakness, that family could be built in unexpected ways, and that sometimes the best thing that can happen is not getting a table at a crowded restaurant. I love you, he said. Audrey blinked, surprised. That came out of nowhere. It did. But it's true. She was silent for a moment. Then she smiled. I love you, too. Really? Really? But if you tell Gwen, she'll make a PowerPoint presentation about it and show it to the whole school. She knows how to make PowerPoint. She learned last week. She's dangerously excited about it. Brendan laughed. And there, in the living room of a simple apartment in Savannah, surrounded by purple balloons and leftover lopsided cake, he realized he had found exactly what he didn't know he was looking for. A family. A home. A new beginning.